You're listening to the Light Over Time podcast with David Sargent and Korey Bartos. It is September 2nd, 2024. We are almost to fall. I do not know where the summer went. July was a very busy month. Obviously, we did not record an episode all of July. We were slammed.
Oh, man, when you say it out loud, it hurts.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was only just about a month, so that's not bad. 4 weeks, I'll take it. Super freaking busy. In and out of the state, doing all sorts of other stuff. So let's start with what you've been up to, man.
We're just now feeling like we're rolling out of summer as far as work goes. So things are starting to wind down just a tad, which is okay by me. When you just kind of go 100% for every day, weeks on end, it's nice to have a little bit of a break. And it's Labor Day today, which is a nice break. Anyway, I'm good. I got out to shoot a little bit last night, which was a first for astrophotography for me for a little while. How about you?
A lot has happened in the last month as far as shooting goes. We went out this weekend, which was nice. We went back out to Tawas State Park Point, whatever it is. Spent the weekend with Elle's family out there. So we kind of did a little bit of birding Saturday and Sunday. Obviously not as crazy as May, but still tons of different birds. Bay-breasted warbler, red-headed woodpecker, a bunch of other little flycatchers and some other stuff we haven't identified yet because I haven't gone through all the photos yet.
Yeah.
But that's been really fun. Still
nice.
Hitting that heavy. My A7C2, which I'm currently shooting this episode on, has not been in my hands for the last month and a half.
Whoa.
I have not used it because it has been attached to the teleconverter in the 70 to 200, which is Elle's bird rig. So
yeah.
I only own A7S2 or 3, I guess. So
It could be worse.
could be way worse. But yeah, so I'm still using the A7 IV for birding, and it works fine enough.
Cool.
Especially in sunny
Nice.
days. But yeah, I mean, I can do a quick recap of the month and what I've been up to, or you can kind of go. I don't know how much shooting you've been doing, but
Not a lot. I want to hear what you got going on.
fair. So at work, we've been starting a new project. We're going to be getting into some hunting stuff, which is kind of cool. Some products that will be kind of either trickled out within the next year or just stuff that we're getting into, but we're starting to do video projects and photo projects on predator hunting and deer hunting and prepping land, which is cool. So it's not even just like gun stuff. It's like I did a 60-second short about just setting up the food plots and stuff like that. And it's been fun to be at work and shooting way different stuff, like a tractor and like putting seeds down for clover.
Cool.
And like that's been a lot of fun. So that's kind of sparked my creativity again, which is nice. I was just in Connecticut for SWAT Challenge and Tactical Rescue Challenge, which was nuts. A lot more cool events this year. They had it was called the Gauntlet. It was a 2-mile run, but within the first 50-yard dash, you had to jump a wall, and then another 50 yards, you had to jump into a 12-foot. They had this simulated water pool thing that you had to climb into. It was a channel that had a grate over it, and you had to swim through that and get out of it, then do the basically 2-mile run through other obstacles and stuff. So that was kind of fun. There was a team, I think it was Army guys, local CT Army National Guard maybe, who their commander, whoever their higher up guy, I think it was the staff sergeant or something, was like, if you don't cannonball into that water, you can go ahead and go home after this event is done. And they full on cannonballed into this. It's 3 foot wide maybe.
Wow.
And it's concrete on the sides, and it's 12 foot deep. And they had their helmet on and stuff like that. So full clothes, camo pants and their undershirt or whatever, and just full on sent it, which was really funny. And a couple other guys went pretty crazy, but the events were sick. Smoke, dog rescue stuff, spraying people down with gas and wearing gas masks and all that is always a lot of fun. But then I went out to see my father, and Elle went with me. We stayed at Cuyahoga National Park the night going in, did some birding out there. then spent a couple of days in Maryland, went to the Blackwater Refuge out in like the Delmarva Peninsula, and that was pretty cool. I saw an ibis for the first time.
Oh, cool.
And I was pretty proud. I can't remember if I made the joke first or if Elle did, but there was an in-body image stabilization joke.
Yes.
But it was in a tree with like 20 egrets, which was really wild, like a big bush. Saw a bunch of cool birds out there. Met the largest dogs of my entire life. My dad has a 255-pound American Molossus.
Wow.
And it is the largest dog I have ever seen.
Wow. That's huge. That's incredibly huge.
Yeah, I'm about 200 pounds, and I'm a 6'9" man. And this dog was 255 pounds, had paws the size of bear paws, and has a puppy temperament. So just like I was pushing him over and rolling him in the dirt and like shoving him and stuff, and he was just like having a good time and like palling around with me. It was honestly the most incredible experience. He's the coolest dog I've ever met.
That's amazing. Sheer weight, that's the heaviest dog I think I've ever heard about. That's cool.
I've never in my entire life of breeding, rescuing, working at humane societies with my mother back in the day and everything, and my mom being a dog groomer, I have never seen a dog break like 220. And like 220 was the biggest freaking animal I'd ever seen. So I didn't even believe it until we got there at night. We went through the rotation to meet all the dogs. He had to rescue a couple, and they have a couple of their own big mastiffs and Molossuses. And then they're like, all right, you ready to meet the big boy? And it's like dark. There's light coming in from the house. He opens the back sliding door, and this massive animal just walks out. And I was like, I literally was like, holy shit. Because I didn't know what his temperament was like or anything yet. I was like, I just have to like be chill and like meet this giant animal. And I'm in a big like pen. Like, it's just me and this dog. And then he ended up being, like, the coolest, chillest dog. I'll post a couple photos of me next to him. He's absolutely massive.
Yeah, I think I saw those in your stories, but didn't realize quite how heavy that dog would have been.
Oh, yeah. And
Incredible.
I have some from the Elle had the 200 to 600 and was snapping some photos. So I'll have some good, high-quality comparisons of, like, my body type to this giant animal.
Nice.
But yeah, tons of birding, and then we stopped in, kind of went from the north tip of the Shenandoah National Park and drove down Skyline Drive for a good chunk of the Shenandoah National Park. They have a lot of like overlooks and stuff like that, which are just beautiful, and there was some pretty cool birds. I think a couple of warblers that we saw. I still haven't mapped these ones out yet, but finches and a bunch of cool little small birds. Obviously saw some ospreys and eagles out on the East Coast, and bunch of shorebirds. I like more shorebirds than I ever thought. I thought there was like 3, and they all look kind of alike. And there's like 20 different plovers and a bunch of different like sanderlings and all these other things that basically look like the same bird, but they're not.
Huh.
So that was cool. Learned a lot about shorebirds.
Sure. Yeah.
And then that kind of leads up to we did a coyote hunt after that. So I shot a short video about doing a coyote hunt with the guys at Jaegerworks, and then Labor Day weekend, and we're here. But it's been chaos, and I'm sure I missed some stuff in there somewhere. Because
that's okay. I had one quick question going all the way back to the first thing you said about the new angles, perhaps new products at work. Do you think moving more towards like farming and hunting is going to be a little less volatile for your job algorithmically?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're kind of hopeful for. We're going to make a secondary YouTube channel, and we're going to push into some of that stuff. And it's not necessarily perfectly adjacent to what we're currently doing,
right?
But I've been kind of fighting this branding problem for a long time. Like, the company started as one of the cooler companies doing what it did to the modifications of pistol slides and stuff like that, and they did it to a higher level than a lot of people were doing for many years. They started in like 2014, so they were ahead of the curve. But as that becomes more of a commodity, and like that's really, really accessible now, it's gonna eventually not be our bread and butter, because it won't be something that's so specialized.
Sure.
And we work with a lot of like tactical officers on like SWAT teams and stuff like that, and we're kind of just like bouncing back and forth. And my problem was that as far as like this industry's branding, people want to be a part of a little bit of something. I mean, that's with branding for anything, right? Like you're like a Nikon shooter if you're like a wildlife and landscape photographer. You're like, you know what I mean? And there's always kind of, it's not exclusive, but that's why people gravitate to what they like. Is like that's where their community is. That's kind of the people that do the thing. Yeah. Most YouTubers have Sonys because it's the biggest influence marketing that they've ever done. But I'm trying to figure out what we could do there, and John and Zach are lifelong hunters. Like Zach's everything is hunting outside of his old job doing what he did. And which is why we still do training and stuff in like the tactical community. But that's not really who he is anymore because now he works for JagerWorks. And it just felt disingenuous to try and be something like try and find stories in a thing where that's not what I'm doing. But I obviously care deeply about the Midwest. I love everything about Michigan. I'm not a hunter myself, but I love venison. I love duck and goose, and I've always been adjacent to the hunting community, but these guys are like literally lifelong hunters, like food plots, like birds, deer, bear, like they've done the whole Midwest hunting gauntlet. And we have some products that make sense in that realm that we've been kicking around for a long time. And I was finally like, why aren't we trying to do this? Why aren't we trying to like push the company into a direction that makes more sense? And like for the guys that are a part of it, you know. So we finally got to the point where we're getting closer to realizing some of these products. And then I was like, listen, if we're going to do this, we have to leverage these stories. We have to tell the story of like why you guys are doing this, because you could come out with that product, but if nobody knows that you're serious hunters, no one's going to buy your product. No one's going to care that it's anything.
Totally.
And so because I haven't been able to tell any story attached to our products yet, because we just machine stuff in a shop, it's been really, really boring on that end of it. Like I can get really cool photos and I can do like the cool stuff, but that wears away on me really quickly when there's not really a story to tell. But I did 2 videos now that were like not even a ton of effort. Like we were just I was getting some B-roll of some land prep, and I was like, hey Zach, just like tell me about what we're doing. And I put some footage over him talking about, and like right when you can just tell instantly that he understands and knows so thoroughly what they're doing with the land stuff, because it's like his thing. It's like if you're like, Korey, impromptu, tell me about what's going on in the camera world, and it's like, okay, well I have a podcast, we talk about this like at minimum twice a month, and you and I talk about it constantly. So it's like I could rip through all the rumors and all the new gear that came out in the last couple of weeks, and it's like you start to thrive. You're like, yes, this is what I've waited my entire life for. So it's cool. Doing the coyote hunt was sick. Like they like that, they enjoy it, and then they can make it a part of what they need to do for work. And you know, in our life, just being who we are in capitalism, doing whatever we're doing, it's like we often don't get a chance to do the thing that we love while we're doing it for work. Yeah. So I'm like, guys.
Yeah. It just sounded to me like the light bulb goes on for the first time, seemingly, that you can tell stories attached to your products that are also connected to the people who are running the company, right? Like you're able to streamline from the very beginning the origins of what inspires them to do what they do, all the way through to being able to provide a product or a service to the people that watch your stuff. That's awesome.
Yeah. And it's like, guys, this is what good marketing is.
Yes. Like, yeah.
Like I've been trying to tell you that marketing is not social media. Marketing is a much greater thing than just social media. That is one channel to channel marketing efforts through, but like
completely,
if it's natural and it's what you want to be doing anyway, and it's what you've been trying to do for years, that makes you credible, and that makes your product credible, and that makes all of that make sense from not even a consumer, but just like somebody who wants to watch your stuff and see like what your company's doing and how they're growing, like, which is part of the battle. Like that's how you hook some people, and if the product ends up aligning with their needs and it provides value to them, they will buy it.
Yes.
And we've
Yeah.
lacked that in our marketing for a little bit now, just because like it's it's niche, but it's like really wide still. There's not like you can't really target the like JagerWorks customer and like a nice little box for our primary product because it has so much use case.
Especially without being put down by the algorithm.
Well, yeah, and it's just like the firearm stuff. Like there's so much more to it than I have a cool gun, and I don't like that marketing. Like it's boring as heck. Like yeah, cool product. It's the same thing that we run into with like the camera gear stuff. If it's not really giving you a capability to make cool stuff, you just have a $2,000 lens for no reason.
Yep. Totally.
But yeah, anyway, that's kind of what's going on. It's very exciting. Very busy. I'm working from home a couple times a week now, which is incredible.
Nice.
Yeah, I have a 160-mile commute both ways. 80 miles one way for work. So they've kind of given me a little leniency so I can do editing and stuff at home. And I tell you what, I can do a lot more when I'm in my own space with my 2 monitors and no one's bugging me. The creative juices flow. I can sit there and make more coffee and just like vibe, and it's been incredible.
I can imagine that's the case. All right, well, that's awesome. I'll jump into my stuff.
Yeah.
So I've essentially gone out to shoot 3 distinct times that I can remember since the last show.
Perfect.
Since we did the black and white challenge, I went out and grabbed a pack of 8 Polaroid images, so a pack of Polaroid film.
Nice.
For my One Step Plus. So I can't remember exactly what the film type is called, but it's specific. And I think it has no battery in it because the One Step Plus has a battery that can eject and all that stuff. So it's specific for that camera. And I grabbed black and white film, and I went out 2 times. I shot, I can't remember, like 2 or 3 exposures on the first time. And I really liked the very first shot I got. It was, I guess this would be maybe the time to pull mine up if I'm talking about it. But the very first one that I shot was this like staircase against a building. And I loved the way that the light was hitting like diagonally, falling across the staircase. So like it's really bright above the staircase diagonally and then really dark below. And there was a bunch of like vines and flowers and greenery hanging off the staircase. One of the things, if you shoot a Polaroid camera, Polaroid especially, and this is true for most of these instant film cameras, the viewfinders on them do not match what you get most of the time. Yeah. And so if you look at any of the other images I shared in there, when I'm trying to line up like lines and shapes and form compositionally, it's extremely tough. But the first one that I shot was that staircase, and I thought compositionally it worked out probably the best out of all of them. So if I'm going to submit one, that would be the one that I would submit for the challenge. I really liked that it technically showed off the dynamic range limits of the film, because it's got, the bright white highlights and then it's got dark shadows in there. But right in between, right across the staircase, you can see the middle ground of like the greenery hanging off the staircase. Compositionally, I think it works. And then it's just got a nice display of the range of highlights and shadows. And I think subject wise, it's nice to look at. It's nothing groundbreaking, but that's kind of the point of Polaroids. There's very few people out there that I follow that shoot Polaroids enough and spend that kind of money enough to make groundbreaking work with instant film. It's expensive. So mostly I do it just to have fun. It gets me out of creative ruts. It gives me a good reason to go and look for something specific, because you only have a limited number of images. You don't want to waste them. And that's where I wasted 4 shots out of this pack. So for the first time, I bought this camera in like 2020, I think. Maybe it was 2021. I can't quite remember. But it's a relatively new camera for Polaroid. And I think maybe they released it in 2019, and I remember wanting it. I believe it was about $200 at the time. It might still be, I don't know. But the One Step Plus is nice because it has Bluetooth connectivity for your phone, and you can change aperture and shutter speed on this Polaroid camera. And I may have talked about this on much earlier show, but
Sure.
it's something I forget about often. In this case, I didn't use those features, but it's really cool to have. But anyway, for the first time ever, I had an issue with the camera, and it's a common issue amongst all Polaroids. One day, you're going to notice that maybe the film doesn't eject correctly sometimes, and that happened. The film got stuck on the roller and wouldn't eject. It went like a couple millimeters, and I could barely like grab my fingertips on it and yank it out. And that happened 2 times in a row, and I had to really work to get those things out. So both of those images, the first 2, didn't expose basically anything at all, which was a bummer. And this was after my first session. The second shot that I did out of the entire pack was the Ordock in Marquette with, I believe it was a National Guard boat out by the Ordock. I don't know what they were doing, but they were working on something. And I thought it was cool just to get that. Again, nothing groundbreaking, but I thought I'd use the Ordock as something of a leading line component to the boat. But another problem with Polaroids, is that they have such little detail in the film. The chemistry just is not great. And it never really was. If you want better film chemistry, get a Fuji instant camera. They're working with better chemistry, and your pictures will come out a little nicer. But again, it's not the point of an instant film camera to have a technically perfect picture. It really never was. It's just fun to use. So I had fun taking that. So then the shot number 3, 4, 5, and 6 all had issues. 3 and 4 were stuck, and then 5 and 6, I don't know what I did, but they were way overexposed or something. So I just trashed them. And then I got to, for that week, I was alone at the house. The kids were downstate for a little while with their grandparents. So I went down to Mackinac to pick them up and brought the Polaroid with me then, and got down to the Mackinac Bridge. We usually meet at like the parking lot where Fort Michilimackinac is, because we've done this a couple times now. And I got there first, so I got the Polaroid camera out and went down to the spot behind the building where you can sit under the bridge. There's a little spot on the beach there. And so I shot directly up at the bridge and tried to line the viewfinder up compositionally to get straight lines and everything. And you can see just like how far off I am. Yeah. So when you're trying to get technically perfect, it like 99% of the time, you're just never going to line those lines up right. Again, it was fun. And so then I took a shot looking out, and I thought that worked out a little bit better from where I was. So that was all of the Polaroid film. And I don't know. I love doing that. I think it's fun. It's just, it's expensive. And at one time I had ordered like 20 packs of the stuff. I think it was the summer of 2020 or whatever when I bought the camera, and I was shooting like a madman. I have a big old box of Polaroids from that year, and it was so much fun. Like the color film, when you hit like a nice sunrise or sunset, and when you're just having fun, it's so satisfying. So last night I went out for the first time in a while to do just plain old astrophotography. And I was sitting on the couch, like looking on Google Maps as I usually do for this stuff, because I knew I needed to look south for the Milky Way, and that's what I wanted to do. And I remembered from years ago when I used to live in Marquette the first time, about 2015 or maybe it was this fall of 2016 before my daughter was born. We had gone out to the old 510 bridge in Negaunee. And it's a really cool old bridge that's really... it's small. It looks like it wouldn't hold a bigger vehicle than like a sedan. And it's decommissioned for vehicular use. You can't drive on it anymore, but it does say enter at your own risk. So there's no like keep out signs or anything like that. So for pedestrians, it's common for people to check it out, walk around on it, and you can see the new 510 bridge from the old 510 bridge. And so my last time I was there, I shot a fall shot of colors surrounding the new 510 bridge, standing on the old one, and there's the new one goes like way up high, like hundreds of feet into the air as it comes around north of the Dead River, and it's just beautiful. It's a really nice spot to do fall photography. But on the old 510 bridge, it happens to run like northeast to southwest, and southwest last night happened to be where the core of the Milky Way would be, because we're later in the year now. It's kind of rotating a little bit that way. Usually in the start of the summer, it's like southeast when you first can start to see it. Now it's southwest. So it ran perfectly. I lined up architecture of the old 510 bridge with the Milky Way and had fun shooting that. I was kind of bopping around the bridge, left of it, right of it. There's like little banks and areas that you could walk around, but mostly just had fun. I brought out the 20 mil, of course, for Astro. That's a really, really great lens, but I brought the Helios 44M as well, and then the Sigma 50 as well. And those are pretty similar focal lengths, but you have a little more creative freedom with the 44M, working with like fall offs and depth of field stuff. So I was working with like details on the bridge instead of just taking plain old Milky Way shots, having the stars go like out of focus and stuff. And there's like graffiti like etched into the iron of the bridge that I was like focusing on real close and having the stars behind, which I thought were nice too. And I probably came away with maybe like, if I had to guess, like maybe 5 or 6 separate compositional ideas from the entire 3 hours that I was out last night. And that's it. I got home at like 2 a.m, had a bowl of ice cream and crashed.
Nice. Yeah, I just watched recently the Petapixel, the new Fuji wide that they released.
I watched that too.
Of it. And he kind of shows how brutal it is to try to use like the guidelines within the viewfinder to get the composition. So that's pretty topical for me, because I was looking into that camera. It's pretty sick. I don't really care for the mini one or whatever, but for like $150, that's a pretty compelling camera. I like the feature
cool.
set on it and stuff. It's pretty sick.
I thought the note about the little selfie lens that you can stick on the front with a mirror on it to see yourself works better for lining up your shots frames than the actual viewfinder does. That was so funny to me.
Oh yeah. They do a good job with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, right on. I think one of the biggest, like, probably missteps in people's like going out to shoot with an idea is that they fixate on, if I'm going to go do Astro, I'm just going to go do Astro. And I'll get a handful of Astro photos, and then I'll come home and I'll be like, oh, but especially if you're with buddies, like, oh, I didn't take a single photo of anything else that we did, so it's nothing. So it is, I need to remember to have a second camera of some kind, so when I'm setting up like time lapses and stuff, I can get detail shots and I can kind of play around with the environment that I'm in when I'm shooting, especially Astro, but especially bird stuff too, because I've been walking away from some of the adventures that Elle and I have gone on going, wow, I really wish I would have like had a shorter lens on a different body so I could have taken way other photos while we were doing a bunch of birding.
Sure.
I've been trying to get a little bit with my like Lightroom mobile app. So I'll take like 1 or 2, random environments, or, we're good about getting selfies together and stuff like that. But I need to really up my game for being able to walk away from something and having a little bit more of a story than just like bird shots.
Sure.
So that's a good lesson in that, because I'm sure some of the Helios stuff was really fun.
Yeah, it was fun. It's a little difficult to work with at night. But I have to say, there's nothing wrong with going out for birds and just enjoying the experience of it. Because if you can at least focus on like the the portion of it where you're learning and just like being in the moment with the birds and like taking note of their habits, that to me is really important stuff.
Sure.
If it's nothing more than just like mental notes of, I noticed this bird kind of like goes to this type of tree with these type of berries a little bit more often. That's like gold nuggets.
Yep.
And so for me, if I was also trying to focus on photographing doing the thing, I might lose out on some of those little nuanced pieces of information.
Well, definitely. And I think it's just the frequency in which I'm birding now is taking away from other opportunities to photograph. So sure. I'm missing that aspect of it.
Okay.
We actually made notes of that because we met up with, started chatting with some birders at Tawas this weekend. Some old head dudes with like old DSLRs and giant lenses, and they were really
Yeah.
friendly. And he was telling us kind of the difference between a couple of the birds that were out there and like what they
Sure.
saw. And Elle had noted that she's like, I can't wait until I know so many of those little things, like when the wind changes on Tawas, because that guy's there all the time. He's like, all of those little birds will be on that back side towards the water and not on this side because the bugs will be hidden from the wind. So it's easier to feed over there. And that stuff's super
That's the gold
sick.
nugget stuff a veteran will tell you. Yeah.
It's super cool. So we definitely love that. But now that I'm doing these kind of things with Elle all the time, I'm missing out on having photos of us doing cool stuff.
Sure.
That I would have been taking if I wasn't doing birding with her, right? But it's fun. It's definitely a blast. I can't believe that we're still like this heavily into it months later, because
it's wonderful.
It's a good time. I mean, we'll find a bird preserve if we go basically anywhere. Like, let's go find a new hiking trail. It doesn't matter where we're at. And it makes every little, if I just got to go see my mother on the east side of the state or whatever, well, we're going to go find a new place to bird. And it makes it just a little bit more worth doing kind of the mundane parts of life.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Which is sweet because, I mean, everybody should go out and hike or do something outdoors for their mental health. It's super good. But being able to do it regularly with somebody that you like and, walk away with some cool experiences and new photos is a blast.
For sure.
I definitely want to do some more astro stuff. I haven't done it in a long time, and I haven't been in a place to do it in a long time, but I get jealous because you get some good Milky Way stuff all the time.
Yeah, it's one of those things, though, where for a long time, for years, like most of a decade, I was continuously inspired by the Milky Way itself. And so I would hear like people saying like, it's the Milky Way. Once you've shot it once, you've shot it 1,000 times type of thing. And for me, I was like, well, no, you can stick this in the foreground and this in the foreground and this. So my landscape brain was going, anything that looks good for a sunrise, sunset compositionally, why wouldn't it also look good with the Milky Way behind it? And so that drove me for a long, long time. I think this year was the first year where I was really like, I'm not sure, but I think what it's going to take for me is really understanding the area around me, because I had my go-to spots in Charlevoix for a long time. Fisherman's Island and Sportsman's Park in East Jordan were two really great spots that were super productive for me, and I got to learn them down to the finest nuance. Every footstep I would take, I would learn something new, and that accumulated over years. And so now I have this ginormous swath of empty area that I have to I'm going to go to this new place, now this new place, now this new place. I didn't have that option in Charlevoix because it's a lot more developed in that area. And so the parks and stuff, you kind of get over, and you have to find those areas that you can really learn with and grow with. And I did. And now there's so many places to choose from that could be good. And for Milky Way, you really have to go out during the day and look at the openings of the sky and where the trees are and how enclosed you are. And it's going to be a lot more work. And I think it's just going to take the time of me doing a lot of landscape photography and making mental notes or writing down notes of, would this be good for astro as well? And that's stuff I used to do a long, long time ago. And I kind of have to get back to those roots. So I'm excited about that. It left me feeling like I wasn't very productive this year, even though I definitely was.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, my experience with it is pretty limited, but I've always been in the best situation for the Milky Way, I've been in the least interesting place. Every single time it was an opportunity to get it clear. So my favorite photos I've ever taken of the Milky Way are still of me on a dock in some wharf in Maryland where there's nothing. Sure. So I snapped the photo on my old 7D with the 14 mil and ran in front of it and just stood there because I was like, I got nothing. Yeah. If I take this photo, it's just okay, did you pull that off of Google? Nobody knows this is just the Milky Way. But I don't think I've ever had anything better than that. All right, so I guess you did kind of your black and white stuff with the Polaroid, so we can kind of go in. We got 2 submissions, and all right, I have a photo. I have 2 photos, but I think I'm just gonna kind of use one. I'll briefly talk about one because me and Elle both shot the same thing. This is actually her image, but I edited it. And when I took it, I was thinking of editing it in black and white. This is, I think, well, I guess this was after we talked about doing the black and white thing already, but I'm just going to send these to you on Facebook really fast.
Okay.
And I'll go through them very swiftly. So these are two very, very different images. The first one is the overpass in Cuyahoga National Park, kind of. We found this little hike. And it was my first moment seeing Elle interested in shooting something that wasn't birds with a mirrorless camera.
Oh, here we go.
So I liked it, and I made a really heavy note of it because she didn't just try to snap it from one spot once.
Oh.
She tried a lot of different, moved around 40 feet, was really trying to figure out what angle she wanted to hit this from. And, I was looking at it already. I was like, oh, when the sun hits that red, I'm going to snap the hell out of it. And, without me saying anything to her, just on her own accord.
This is huge.
Yeah.
She's doing this for her, not because you enjoy it.
Yeah, I didn't say anything
awesome.
about it yet. I had just thought, wow, that's going to look really sick when the light comes over the trees. Because it was the morning. It was the first thing in the morning we got out to hike, and we were going to get on the road to head to Maryland. And it was just cool to see her brain kind of, snap off and be like, oh, there's something here, and it's really interesting to me, and I don't know what it is, but I'm going to try to capture it. So I edited her image because I don't have it on this computer yet.
Sure.
How I would edit mine, kind of. A little grain, high contrast, very, very slight vignette. But it was very cool to me because I got to witness that happen for the first time. And that was really dope.
Yeah.
The second image is of Zach, my coworker, with his night vision and his gun set up for coyote hunting. This is during our coyote hunt recently.
Cool.
And the kind of the really hot spot under his muzzle is the moon.
Oh, cool.
And he really liked it. You could see a little bit of the stars going on. And obviously that's the night vision going into his eyeballs. But this is just kind of a vibe. It was really, really dark, but it worked really well as a black and white. I have kind of a series of photos of both him and John kind of kitted out for yote hunting, and some through my PVS-14, my night vision goggle, which I was gonna do one through the night vision because it's actually just black and white in general. It's a white phosphor tube, so it only comes out black and white. But this is just the A7S III, actually.
If you can remember, can you walk me through your thought process on getting your settings down for this?
So this was interesting because this, I believe, is shot in S-Log. And it's because I was shooting everything at 12,800, and I basically was just trying to handhold the lowest shutter speed I could to make sure that his Vipers, his nods, were gonna put splashback into his eyes.
Yeah.
And I was only exposing and composing or focusing for his eyeball.
Sure.
And I was trying to keep the moon under his muzzle so you could see it and it wouldn't get silhouetted.
So I like that was top of mind for you compositionally. There's something there. Yeah.
Yeah. It made it a little bit more interesting. I mean, his eyes nearing, where the 2/3, the vertical and horizontal third, gets that little corner.
I also like that the entire barrel does not dip below the tree line. That you have a force driving. It obviously reads right to left, but there's no until you get to his arms. I like that there's separation from the background there.
Yeah, and we're on a weird hill, right by a service road on the property. So I'm I think doing a one leg straight out and bent knee, kind of trying to figure out how to get right where I needed to be. But I just wanted to silhouette his gun. It's a pretty sick setup.
Did you say what your shutter speed was? Do you remember?
I actually don't know what it was. It was fairly slow, but not super slow. It's probably 1/25th or something like that.
Yeah, that's why I'm wondering, because some of the vegetation looks pretty well still, but there's a little bit of motion blur on the ends of some of them. So I was curious if it was down below 1/200th or something.
It's 1/8.
Yeah, all right.
At f2.0 on the 28mm FE at ISO 12,800. And
awesome.
that's really clean for 12,800. I have, my exposure's up 1.11. My shadows are up plus 54. I added texture and I added like 50 grain. So it's actually way cleaner than that. So that's
Cool.
that's pretty wild. But I really like that. I think Zach's always a fun subject because he's very professional at what he does, and he never kind of looks goofy. He always like is really intentional when he's either shooting or hunting or doing whatever he's doing. So he's about as pro as my friends get as far as like hunting and doing stuff like that.
Nice.
But yeah, super cool.
That works out really well too, because with it being that dark, color wasn't going to help you anyway.
Yeah, you just get kind of gross. There's a lot of different. There's other like farming properties and stuff. So you get like what are they, like those sulfur bulbs plus like really bright like LED bulbs, and all the light colors disgusting. So
yes,
it's super not helpful. But we have 2 photos here from submissions, which is pretty cool. So I'm gonna do both of them. They're from 2 different people.
Okay.
One is good long-time listener, Fabian from the gear community, and it's
nice.
It's through this window. So we'll start with this one. This is on a Fuji X100F.
Cool.
With what is it, the glimmer glass or whatever that filter is, and Palma de Mallorca in Spain. On vacation.
Oh, nice.
But I'm a sucker for a dark interior through the, like, this is easy money for me every time I'm traveling.
Yes.
But I mean, freaking beautiful window, cool environment. Just a little bit of the splash on the. I mean, I don't even know what that would be if those are to sit on next to the window or whatever that is, but it's a beautiful architecture.
And it is a window because you can just see a little bit of reflection on the right pane. Otherwise, I almost would have thought it was just an opening, you know, through the building. But you can see a little bit of reflection that gives you just that contextual information. Yeah. And I like that the blacks aren't totally dropped out. You can see the steps leading up to it. So it is like a place to sit and observe and kind of be cozy.
Yeah. Super nice. There wasn't a whole lot of editing done, but it was converted to black and white after shooting in color. And then he brought the highlights down a little bit, he said, but I mean, it's a beautiful shot for, shooting around with an X100 and on vacation. But
is there metadata there to see the aperture? Because there's a lot in focus there, and I like that about this image.
I'm not sure that there is. I can see on the downloaded version, but you're right. I mean, it's certainly stopped down quite a bit. It looks like it is 1/4000th of a second, which I believe is max on that camera. Yeah, sure. And then ISO 1000 and f4.
Okay. Well, it's a wider lens too, so f4 is kind of all you need when you're focused out. He's probably focused, if I had to guess, on the window panes, so that's cool. Yeah. And then I just like to see you've got visibly, there's the palm trees, of course, but you can see like the progression of the big one right in the center and then the 2 on the left. So you have an element of 3s, which compositionally is something to hang on to. It's kind of like finding triangles, finding patterns. So the 1, 2, 3 leads me out. So you've got the steps going to the window, putting me in the place, and then you've got looking out a pattern of 3 trees, which I really appreciate. I think it's cool.
Yeah, I agree. Awesome shot. Hard to beat old X100 sensors for getting that like kind of filmic detail, and I'm into it.
Me too.
This next photo, this is a person by the name of Clam on the old CE collector emitter Discord that I'm in as well. Decided to send in a few film photos. Nice. And I chose this one out of the ones that they sent because there was another one of this exact shot, but the angle was like kind of lower and angled higher, so you couldn't see as much of the landscape. And I don't generally love like a center horizon on shots, but for something about this one just slams. I don't know if it's because it says heaven on the head and it's literally like kind of busy and then really, really like desolate in the sky. But this is freaking beautiful. So this is a 28mm. Let me pull up the message again real quick. So this is a Canon FTB with an FD 28mm with Kodak 400 TX.
Sure.
And they made note that the scanner was whatever is in the lab that they're definitely not going to again. It looks like the labs that they were using weren't ideal. And there was a couple of really cool images. There's some trees and stuff. I'll probably share them with you after the show. But
Okay.
I loved this freaking shot, so I wanted to highlight it.
I pick up on little stuff on this that I really like the horizon lining perfectly up with the left ear.
Yeah.
That to me is like a connection of the subject and the background that works super well compositionally for me. And you're right. I think compositionally, I tend to prefer not to center horizons as well. I think for a lot of reasons, it's like eerily too much balance in a lot of cases. But this one works super well. It almost looks like it's pulled out of a feature film, you know?
Yeah.
Like a Wes Anderson shot or something.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely something about making the sky and land like symmetrical for, I mean, a round subject in the middle being the head, and then just like having the shoulders fall off or whatever. But the detail looks nice. Like, there's just enough going on in the landscape that it's like not busy, but it's interesting. And just the little two little peeps of cloud.
Do we know where this was taken?
I have no other information about it at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, it slammed. I was like, this is great. Especially
cool.
for film, like, you know what I mean? You didn't really get a second shot at this. You took a couple and then you're like, I hope that worked out.
Yeah.
And not being happy with your scanner, or your processor guy, lab rather. I mean, it's pretty great. You can't.
I'm
really
curious
fault.
what they were unhappy with. The first thing I noticed was it's a little like low in contrast, but I don't think to me that hurts in any way.
No,
so I'm curious what they were.
There was a few that like some of the shots had some artifacting and stuff like that. But I don't know if it was them or if it was their gear or something. But yeah. They said
I haven't shot a lot of film, so I wasn't sure if this film is just naturally low contrasty or if they didn't push it hard enough.
Yeah, fair enough. I guess both labs sucked for different reasons, but it was just funny. Yeah, I loved it, and I'll probably put up the other shot of this as well, and I'll send it to you really fast because it's worth comparing the compositions. Because very, very different feelings from both shots, but the other angle has something to it. If there was more going on, like if there was more images for what they were doing, there could be a very interesting story if this was talking about this person or what it was. I'm not sure, but
you're right. They are very different from each other, but there is something to be said about the one you just sent. It almost is like this person's back and shoulders act as the landscape that's in the background. The way that it almost looks like a mountain in the background. I think from like a super abstract compositional tool, the exact positioning of where he was to take this shot worked in that way. It's very interesting, but you're right. It is contextually different from the first one. And I think I prefer the first one just because there's a little more to look at.
Yeah, this one's like brooding or something. There's something intense about it in a way, just having that like low angle while the subject's also looking down in the other direction. It's pretty trippy, but they're good. That's like
they're both
album
good,
cover situation or like really good old film situation, like old movie. I'm into it. Very dope. Appreciate y'all for the submissions. I like talking about people's stuff. I like looking at it. I like feeling some type of way. So yeah. I think for the next one, which won't be until October, I want to do portraits.
Okay.
And the reason is I have a Sony A1 and a 51.2 for rental at the end of the month.
Nice. All right.
Or actually, in just a couple weeks, actually. I think in 2 weeks. The 16th is when those should be here. So I'm going to evaluate them and play around with the 51.2 and decide if it's enough to spend like $500 to $700 more over the 51.4.
Sure.
And that, because that's money right there. And then and then I'm curious about that 50 megapixel sensor in the A1. It's the only sensor I haven't had direct experience with. I've used their 61 megapixel sensor, which I think is the same across all the Rs, unless they slightly updated it in the 5. But I loved that many megapixels, so I'm excited to play with a fast-ish readout, larger sensor. Should be fun for video, but it'll be really epic for portraits. Like, you can't really get better than a 51.2 on a Sony A1.
Yeah, that sounds exciting.
But yeah, so I think sometime, whatever the first show is in October, whether we get to one early in October or mid-October, I think if you want to submit LOTpod submissions at gmail.com, send in your portraiture. We'll stick to one image, just for simplicity's sake. But yeah, hope to see some cool stuff. As far as other things that I have to talk about, Sony had a release, and in 3 days we get a Sigma release. We get an announcement in 3 days for Sigma.
We hope it's a release.
Yeah, so Sony released the very, probably arguably the most anticipated lens refresh in their whole lineup, the 85 GM2, because the 85-1.4 was one of their very first G Master lenses, if not the first.
Yeah.
And it's slow.
It's notorious.
It's not that sharp. Like, depending on your copy, the FE1.8 is markedly sharper.
Oh, that's rough.
And the Zeiss,
I wasn't aware.
Yeah, but it has some early Sony magic. Like, people really like how it renders.
Okay.
But as far as actual fine detail sharpness, a good copy of the FE1.8 is better, but the Zeiss Bartos is almost always better. So, like, the GM was not really... It was hit after a couple of years. Like, once they released a couple more GM lenses, like, obviously the 70-200 is sharper than that thing. So, pretty crazy. But they fixed all of that. It appears to be pretty sharp. It appears to be way faster focusing. Obviously, it has the multiple, linear motors. It's much smaller. It's not like, on paper, it's not super small, but everybody's kind of saying that just that little less chunk and the little bit less weight, it just handles so much better.
Sure.
It's still $1,800 though.
Yeah.
So for me, this is not a buy. I'm not like a hard portraiture guy. There's nothing that the 70-200 can't do that this does, really. If I'm at like f2.8 at 135, I'm getting 80 to 90% of what the GM Prime can do. Though the bokeh renders super nice on this thing.
Yeah, I'm looking at some shots on Petapixel's website. It's nice.
Yeah, it looks super good. If what you're doing is living in 85 and doing a lot of portraiture, like product photos, I know my buddy John at Modlight loves 85 mil, then this is probably super sick. But it's just not versatile enough, and it's not enough for me to spend $1,800 on an 85.
That's the thing. For me lately, it's been a lot of my mind for trying to buy a lens or thinking about buying what's next is value and versatility. The 150-600, you've heard me say it so many times, high value, highly versatile. And I had the 85 FE and I used it for a lot of commercial work. And it's great for details. It's great for portraiture, but it's not that versatile. And that lens had its issues. The chromatic aberration on it was quite bad. It was sharp enough. It definitely gave me what I wanted detail wise, but yes, it did have its issues. These images look great. This is the lens they probably should have started with, but it is what it is. It is high priced, but it's the same price as as what the first one launched for as well. Yeah. So I found that pretty interesting. But
and it's what, 8 years later or whatever. So it's good value. Like, it's not like inflation destroyed
better
this.
Value.
But I mean, I think the Canons and stuff like that are floating in this price range. Like, you're kind of, that's what you're going to get for this very, very high demand portrait lens. The chromatic aberration is way better than the first one. The first one's brutal.
Oh yeah, sure.
So that alone, I think, is probably super money for portrait photographers. I was kind of, me, when Sony's going to release a new G Master, I get all excited and I'm like, oh, maybe this is the one. Maybe this is the one I'm going to get. And then like the day before it launched, I was like, there's no way I'm buying this lens. And then it came out at still 1,800, and I was like, yeah, why would I? There's no reason I would ever buy this thing. And then I was questioning because, again, I don't want to like float my laurels too much or whatever about being a B&H creator or whatever, but like the 51.2 is a really good value when you get the discount.
Sure.
Or even used. Like I've been seeing them for $1,500 used, and the 51.2, if stopped down to 1.4, is like circular bokeh. That's bokeh, and is solid. So yeah, that's a tough pill for me to swallow. 50 is much more versatile for me, but that's just me. Portrait guys are gonna love this thing.
When you're talking close to 2,000, the lens just isn't interesting enough for me to care too much.
Yeah.
It's a great lens, and if I had it, I'd use it. But I'm not spending $1,800 to have an 85-1.4, especially when Canon and Nikon have 85-1.2s. Where is that from Sony?
Yeah, I mean that would be a $2,300 lens,
and that's fine. I think I would be more inclined to think about an 85-1.2 at $2,300 than this. But yeah, it is what it is. I know they've been for a long time pushing less weight, and that seems to be the case here. It's not necessarily a whole lot smaller, it looks like, but they did shed some weight.
But the reports are that it balances way better, and that little bit was enough. So, and I get that. Like it's
fair.
Serious. But now
for Sony,
the most exciting one, the thing that's been like killing me since Canon released the 24-105 f2.8, which is crazy, except it's one of their weird video hybrid photo lenses, and I don't understand what they're doing with that because it's sketchy, especially after that dude released the video of the VC lens. It's the 35-1.4 like video hybrid lens, and on the red it just has no corrections at all, and it's like awful for distortion and breathing and everything. They're like, no, we're doing it all in software. But Sigma, the rumors are basically 99.9% now, because usually if Sony Alpha Rumors posts a image that has like a leaked image, and it's pretty legit, and it's been out for a couple days now, so he hasn't backtracked or said this was like a Photoshop job or something. 28-105 f2.8 from Sigma. It looks like it's internal zoom, which is amazing.
Incredible.
It looks to be the size of a 70-200. Same basic layout as the Sony 70-200 GM, which is great for me. If this thing is even basically like controlled to the degree of the 28-70 breathing, this is a hard buy for me.
Same. I
loved the 24-105 G lens from Sony. I used it for a very long time. I took it to the Philippines for 2 months. It was like my go-to lens on this the A7S III for video. The range is near perfect. Like, you can shoot 90% of stuff on a 70-200, or you can shoot 90% of stuff on a 24-70, but you can shoot like 97% of stuff on a 28-105.
Yes.
And generally, I haven't ever missed that 4 mil on the 28-70, because if I want to go wider, I generally want to go a lot wider than 24. Like if I'm feeling like, oh, I need to get wide, I should probably pick up like the 16-25 or a 16-28 or a 16-35, because I just usually want that 20. After having the 20-70 or the 21-8, like my brain floats around that 20 mark, and that's wide to me. So this is sick.
This is exciting. For me, this is exciting. It is, if they open pre-orders or just orders on the 5th, which is when we're supposed to see the announcement, I'm in day one. I have a 50 and I have a 150-600. A 28-105 puts me in a position where I'm not going to feel like I want a 70-200 too bad anymore.
Right.
Because I have no problem pulling out the 150-600 for things that aren't wildlife. It's versatile enough for me to use it for a lot of different reasons. So to not feel like I want to spend the money on a 70-200 is cool. And you get so much more versatility, I think, out of those focal ranges. And now the other thing that's cool is, yeah, I have the 51.4 if I want to do portraiture, but that thing can do portraiture too, I'm sure.
Yeah.
On the longer end, you'll get a nice separation of background and depth of field. Optically, I'm sure it's going to be great.
It's an art lens.
It might have some slight issues with like chromatic aberration or something like that, wide open. I'm guessing that it's not going to be terrible. We're seeing Sigma come out of the gate with some incredible glass now, and I'm really happy with what they're doing with value and performance. It's right there in that sweet spot. They know what they're doing. The other cool thing is I have a 20 mil lens, and so I feel like that's enough separation for me at 28 I'm covering the ranges. I'm excited. I don't think they could have announced another lens that I would have jumped on as quickly as this one.
Yeah, there isn't. I've been talking for a long time about I almost loved the idea of the 35-150 from Tamron, but I don't like the variable aperture. It will sneak its head into video problems for me if I don't like have it locked at 2.8 or something like that. So it just wasn't enough, though I do like the 135 range. But I use the 90mm 2.8 at work a lot, the macro, and using that for portraits is pretty awesome. So I'm very confident in 90-105 at 2.8 is going to be incredible for portraits if I need it.
Yeah.
It's going to be really good for like products. It's going to have compression that is the best 28-70 2.8 will never have. So this is like the go-to. This will be glued to my 7S III for video. Like there's not a reason for me to pull something out unless I need super low light. If I need like the fastest lens I got. And that's it.
I was thinking about video for this too for me because I still do a YouTube channel. I filmed a little piece last night to do an update on my YouTube channel. Nice. And I just in my head, this is actually the first zoom lens I'll have had since I sold my Tamron 70-200 on the Nikon DSLRs. I can't recall another zoom lens. Except for the 150-600, I guess. Right. But for anything else, I haven't had a zoom lens in a long time. And 28-105 2.8 for doing video work for my YouTube channel, other than like vlogging and holding it out. I don't think my arms are quite long enough to have 28 make a lot of sense for that, but I do a lot of work with the tripod, so I am very familiar with setting up a shot and then talking to the camera, and that's going to be awesome. Running around with that thing, getting all kinds of different shots for different YouTube videos is going to be great. So yeah, I am very excited for this, and if it's at or below $1,500, that will be incredible. Yeah, I'm really hoping we're in that $1,500 ballpark. Yeah, because what is Canon's? Do you know?
3,000.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So they have a reason to not be that low, but we've been saying that.
Yeah.
And they still come out with $1,100, $1,200, $1,300 for lenses that could go double easily.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm definitely hoping for it has to be under $2,000 for it to make sense right now. I'd have to wait a little longer if it's more than that. But I mean, if it's 18, I'm still pretty happy. If it's 15, it's an instant buy. Yeah, like that's so money. I can't imagine taking that off of my camera very often. Truly, like that's going to be like and I like the form of 70-200, so I'm not worried about it being big. Like those two lenses are basically going to interchange. And when I'm setting up the rig with the rods and stuff, the lens support should work for both lenses perfectly. And it'll be like everything I need. I could go shoot the entire world with 28-105 and 70-200. And then, slamming the teleconverter on the 70-200 when I need it for video is plenty for me. So
I didn't look at the leaked image too hard. Do we know if it's what the filter thread size is?
Yeah, I think it's 80.
85?
What's the standard? I think after it's 77.
I think it's 85 after 77.
Why am I blanking on it? That's the real question.
That'd be a bummer because I have a bunch of 77 millimeter.
Yeah, it's bigger than 77 for sure.
All right.
82. Wow, I don't know.
82 is it? Okay.
So yeah, it'll be 82, but that's the price of doing business.
Yeah.
But
That's all right though. I can deal with that.
The leaked image. Well, actually, I could be wrong about it being internal zoom. That was me just speculating. It looks like it might not be internal zoom.
Time will tell.
Yeah, which would kind of suck, but it's not going to be a deal breaker for me on this because it's an art lens. It looks like it has all the controls you want from an art lens.
Yeah.
Looking at it in this picture with the A7R5, it's the exact size that I'm happy to run on a full deal. So, dude, 105-2.8 is like money. And then on the A7C2 and the A7 IV, like running the crop mode, that's everything, dude. That's so good. So
this is a big one from Sigma, and we've been saying it. It's almost like every time we do a show, there's a new Sigma lens announcement that just is. It's not that it's not even surprising anymore. It's just one after the other. They're a first party essentially, making incredibly high value lenses, and I don't know when are we going to get to a point where we just stop saying this. It's how do they keep doing it?
Yeah, I mean they're really going for it, man. We've been saying it, but I tell people all the time when they're like, well, I'm trying to decide between like the Tamron 28-75 or like a Sigma, and I'm just like, honestly, I wouldn't even consider the Tamron stuff unless they're making a very particular lens, because Sigma's level of quality is like almost at G Master for hundreds and hundreds cheaper for whatever you're getting, and it's like, yeah, it's a no-brainer. If you're like me and you're really, really annoying about breathing compensation, then but that's like my breaking point. That's the only thing that makes me not want the Sigmas. You know what I mean? So, it's like a small percentage of difference. Like, I know that I can have breathing compensation and have an absolute zero breathing issue if I want to do a really nice throw of focus.
Sure.
Which I don't do all the time. But if I'm spending money on lenses, that's what I want.
Yeah.
So for most of you guys listening, I would never listen to me if like I'm like, you should get the GM over the Sigma, because like I'm sure it's probably only because I want that feature.
Yeah. I don't care too much about that. So yeah, that's funny.
I'm just a video dork, and I'll always feel that way. But I mean, lately I've been trying to get over it. The 28-70 from Sigma, the contemporary lens, doesn't breathe that bad. For like 90% of anything I'm ever gonna do, it's plenty good. I've shot a ton of video on it because it's what I travel for work with, because it's Works lens. And that on the A7 IV, I've never ever been like, man, this sucks. I'm always like, yeah, this is totally fine. All of this footage is totally workable.
Yeah,
so, it's just
another kudos to Sigma.
Yeah, good on you guys. I'm very excited. I can hardly wait for the 5th. It's like having another birthday this year.
I know, and my birthday's on the 10th, so thank you, Sigma.
Well, happy early birthday.
Thanks.
But yeah, I think as far as all that goes, that's all I have for the show. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on? I know you were talking about.
I thought there were a couple interesting things. I ordered a lens that I think I told you about. Polar Pro. Polar Pro. They're famously working with Peter McKinnon on filters. They've done great work with really nice quality filters. You use some of them, I believe. And they just announced a line of lenses, and they are very cheap. They're comparatively very low cost lenses, but they're supposed to be. They're really like small. They're supposed to be like point and shoot style points of view type lenses. There's a 16 mil. Let me see if I can pull this up. Oh, I don't even have the
fancy. They're very fancy pinhole lenses.
Basically, yeah. There's like a 16 mil, I think like a 20 mil, and like maybe like a 30 mil or 35 mil. Maybe it was like a 24 mil, but there's 3 lenses in that range. Yeah. And I'm really, I've been really missing. There's a long time ago, I had the Samyang 14 millimeter on the Nikon DSLRs that I had, and I miss playing with that wide of a field of view. Just stretching things out at the edges and not being like a technically perfect image, but playing with that wide angle has always been fun for me. And I've made some really cool looking images with that kind of approach. And so when I saw that 16 mil was included in their lineup for, I think it was like 150 or maybe a little bit less. $130. Like, what do you really got to lose spending $130 to have to at least have that focal length and to be able to play with something different? Now, you are definitely looking at glass that is not extremely sharp. It's supposed to like flare and not handle, you know, it's like using like an old dusty film camera that needs to have been serviced a long time ago, dirty glass, that kind of look, that old filmy vintagey look. It's soft on purpose. It's not meant to be high quality glass with sharp controlled everything. And so you can call it whatever you want to call it, trendy, whatever. I just kind of want that 16 mil look back, and I think this is a cool way to get back into playing around and having fun. So I ordered that. I haven't gotten a shipping confirmation. I have my order in, and I looked on the website, and it said like put your order in to have it shipped by the next couple of days, and it's been over a week now. So I don't know if they're backed up a little bit. Maybe they are.
Sure.
But I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I mean, so they're f11 pinhole lenses that have adjustable light leak, which is just kind of
light
neat.
leak. That's what it's called.
So they're called light leak lenses. There's a 16, 28, and 50.
That's what it was, 50. Yep.
And I mean, it's neat. The sample photos are fun. Like, it definitely has the like disposable camera vibe, and the light leak feature looks fun. Depending on what you put it on, like, could you imagine putting this thing on like a 60 megapixel camera and getting like like real detail but still look kind of janky and fun? I mean, it's gonna be cool. I'm excited to see what you do. I was gonna pick up the 3-pack when it came out because I'm really susceptible to marketing emails.
Yeah.
And I love Polar Pro. I've been using the short stash everyday filter for a while, and I have their 95 mil CP filter on my 200 to 600, and I use all their VNDs and stuff. But so I'll probably pick one up. I just haven't decided if I wanted to do the 28 or the 16. But I have a 28 f2, so I'll probably do the 16 as well, just because it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is going to be cool. I'm sure you'll have some cool stuff to share when you get it, and we'll talk about it when they're in hand. But
yeah, it made me think of like when I used to do weddings, I would never think to use this for like basically anything, except there were a couple of occasions where I could get creative after I've gotten everything I needed to get. Usually this would be at reception after all the formal dances, or during formal dances, as long as I'm back and forth and get what I need to get. There were occasions where I would use something like the reflection of my phone. I would hold my phone in front of my lens and then have the reflection of the lens kind of reflect, for example, like the first dance. So you could get like their reflection as a foreground element. I thought that I've used that technique a couple of times with some success. Like sometimes on the tables at the receptions, there will be like, I don't know, like a glass decorative thing, and you can pick that up and shoot through that. And sometimes there's like string lights or candles or whatever inside of them. And if you shoot through them, you get this ethereal look with like nicely rendered out of focus things in the foreground. That kind of thing has always appealed to me. And so I would do that for weddings at times where it was appropriate. And those always get nice comments, and I thought that was fun. That aspect of having fun with an imperfection in a lens, essentially built into this lens as a light leak feature. I thought that was just neat, and for less than $200, why not?
Yeah, I mean, I actually used to carry around a Powerman 5000 CD in my camera bag when I was shooting like my 7D, and I used to always use that for reflections because it did like the rainbowy reflection into it.
Yeah.
But I could see like Godox makes a fun little like vintage flash. like on camera flash, that with this lens, probably super sick.
Oh yeah.
You could definitely get like the old party, like disposable vibes, super easy. Unlike a really cheap camera, I would get like, like a Sony, what would it be, like the A6000 or the A5100, and slam the 16 mil on there if you want like a really pocket, like the 5100 with the 16 mil would be a super dope like 24 equivalent with a cheapo little flash on it. And
The
you would
noise would be with a flash. Yeah.
and you'd have sick party photos.
Right.
And you could get a 5100 for like $100.
Yeah.
So like that would be just sick for somebody
Yeah.
who wants to have that vibe. Like I could totally recommend that to somebody who's like, I want a point and shoot vibe, because point and shoots are expensive now. Like
Some of them are outrageous.
they're ridiculous. So like,
Yeah.
I would do that. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
In fact, I might have to get the 16 and go into crop mode and kind of use my flash and just play with that idea, just to sample that out. But it'd be really cool.
I had one more thing. We'll make it quick. I know we're running long here. Samyang announced the world's first optical exchange AF lens. Did you see this?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll briefly cover what this really is. It looks like a pancake lens, except it's modular. So the housing of the lens can stay on the camera, but you can actually detach a middle portion that contains the glass, and you can swap out essentially just the glass inside of it. It's got a smaller little modular housing portion of just the glass. So essentially you've got the lens mount connected always, and you can swap out the glass for different focal lengths. I don't think the focal lengths are very widely ranged. You've got a 21 mil, a 28 mil, and a 32 mil set of glass that they're offering in Korea only right now. But I thought it was interesting. It is interesting because we've never seen this before. Obviously,
Sure.
World's first. Does this idea take shape outside of a Samyang who can just kind of do this for probably very little money, because there's very little glass involved. It's tiny, the pancake lens style. Does a Canon, a Sony, a Nikon look at this and go,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, it's a really cool idea to dial in like what you'd want for a pancake on like a kit. If it's, I don't know how much of this thing is supposed to be, but you're looking at f2.8 aperture and autofocus. But
yeah,
so
I forgot to say that. It's an f2.8 32 mil. That's kind of nice.
Is that fixed aperture?
I'm not sure, actually.
I feel like it would be, but like I don't know, dude. STM motors, I don't know. I feel like it's probably fixed. That would be a lot going on if there was also an aperture in it.
That would be. Although would the aperture be built into the back of the lens that's always connected,
right?
And
possibly.
Not the modular part?
It has 7 blades.
Yeah. All right.
So but it doesn't give a range, like, so I don't know. Maybe it does still have.
There is f3. So the 21 mil is f3.5 to f22. They're all up to f22. The 32 mil is f2.8 to f22.
Got it.
That is very interesting.
And full frame, which is crazy.
Yep. And less than. Oh my goodness. Let's see. Weight without module 12.6 grams, and the 32 mil is 8.4 grams, and then the module itself is about 58 grams. So altogether you're looking at like 70 grams of a lens.
Yeah.
And that's what pancake is for, but you have something very interesting going on here.
They show it mocked up here on an A7C II, and it's tiny. It's like the APS-C 16 mil from Sony. And like that's pretty cool.
49 millimeter filter size. You can throw a filter on there if you want to. This is totally workable. I'm sure I can't say that. Samyang's been in the game for a long time. Maybe the glass is workable. It will be very small. I think the 32 mil at f2.8 sounds really enticing, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean,
just to have a little pancake lens.
And it's looking like whatever this 5% sale is, just under 300,000 won, which would be like just over $200.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So like enough to, I mean, again, we understand that like that's still $200. Not everybody can just like throw that around for fun. But as far as lens technology goes, that's very affordable.
Yeah.
Especially for some kind of experiment like this. But yeah, that thing looks neat. I kind of like just overlooked it and moved on, but I'm glad you brought it up today because that is actually kind of sick. I think
there's a little more going on with it than I originally even thought until we started digging in here a little bit. I kind of hope they bring it to America. Yeah, this is cool.
Yeah, SDM.
That's all I had though.
But it might be noisy. It might be kind of meh. Maybe it's weird. Maybe it has quirks, but maybe it's great. Maybe that's why
it's a very third-party lens. You don't get your hopes up too high for any of their lenses, to be honest with you. I've owned a few Samyang lenses. They're workable and they're high value for a reason. This is innovative, though. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, I agree. Outside of that, I believe we have we're still waiting for a couple of Sony announcements this month. I think we're going to get the new FX camera. They might allegedly be releasing a 24-70 f2.
Okay.
Which would be crazy because that would step right on Canon's toes with the 28-70 f2.
For sure.
I don't know how big it would be, but it sounds like it would be rather large. I've held the 28-70 and it's chonky.
The physics would suggest it would have to be pretty large, but Sony's been on their game lately, shrinking these things as best they can. So we'll see.
Yeah. And then there's allegedly maybe a surprise announcement soon, but we don't get alpha camera information until October or November. And I don't know if that's even a full frame alpha camera. So thank the stars. I'm really happy with my my A7S III right now. And for some reason, that little sensor has been just giving me lots of joy. So,
and since your repair with it all has been well?
Yeah, I mean, it was a freaking haul. It was over $800, but the cards are fixed, and basically I have a new sensor, essentially.
Wonderful.
So it's a totally refurbished new camera.
Sweet.
And it's awesome. It sucks because it's in the weird middle ground where it got some of the video updates where, like, the video mode is the new mode, but it lacks some of the autofocus features and some other things. So it's in like this weird limbo of I'm an old camera, but a new camera. But I tell you what, it has already been more valuable to have that 12,800 S-Log 3 than basically anything else. So that this, knowing that I'm not like glued to the fact like, dang, I really need to get a good hybrid camera because I have a killer video camera. It's really freeing that like I can just wait till the next alpha camera, use the A7 IV and the A7C II for photos, and I'm generally quite happy with them. So I tell you what though, the autofocus situation on the A7C II has been showing itself to be markedly better than the A7 IV in ways that makes it frustrating to go back and shoot birds with the A7 IV sometimes.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's, you know, it's got 7 steps of IBIS or whatever, and definitely better autofocus algorithms. So
impressive.
But I hate the viewfinder for birding, so I still use the A7 IV, and L uses my A7C2. But yeah. Anyway, that's all we have for you. Gonna try and slam this one out today and get it out tomorrow. So you'll probably be listening to this on the 3rd of September. It will be out before this Sigma announcement, though, so be on the lookout because maybe we'll both be in such a panic in pre-ordering a new lens that we'll have a very follow-up episode.
That would be sick.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll probably be losing our minds and texting each other for all of the morning we can on the 5th.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Anyway, thanks for listening.
Appreciate you guys. Take some portrait images. Hold on to them until October.
Yeah. All right.
See you later. Bye. 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 Bye.